Thank you both for talking with me today. I'm really excited to tap into your expertise. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions to help Philanthropy Roundtable members become better acquainted with the role that community colleges can play in helping people achieve greater economic mobility. Now, two of you have been very instrumental in really developing some key concepts, guided pathways and iBest. Can you please quickly, I know it's a hard thing to do when you spent your life on things, quickly share what these models mean, perhaps starting with you, Jon, on iBest, and then we'll move over to Davis on guided pathways?
Certainly. Well, iBest has really changed the way we educate lower skilled and low income adults. What it does is it puts a basic skills instructor in the same classroom with a career technical or academic instructor, and they teach both the academic skills and workforce skills at the same time as developing those basic skills that are critical for employers. And what this team teaching does is it allows students to be earning college level credits and credentials towards a very specific certificate or degree. And key to iBest is that every class they take counts. So nothing in their pathway is extra. So the motivation is amazing. What it does when you had students that spent years in basic skills or English language learning classes, all of a sudden they're in college level classes, earning college credits and college certificate degrees, and the motivation for them is unbelievable.
So instead of making it this heavy linear slog where you have to get yourself up to the speed where you now know enough math and English to take college classes, you integrate those.
It's contextualized, just-in-time learning.
Yeah.
So,
And in technical fields, I was actually there at the birth of iBest. John's colleague and I, David Prince, did research looking at the labor market outcomes for students in adult literacy, and we found, consistent with other research, that adult literacy alone did not elevate them into the labor market. But when it was combined with especially college level career technical training, there was a huge bump. They reached this tipping point, which essentially got them into technician jobs that paid a living wage, paid benefits, and that, by the way, that employers were hungry for. And this was in the late 90s when we had a big labor boom. So it broke down the idea, though, of what you alluded to, this idea that students have that you have to learning is
step
sequential.
One, step two, step three.
And that you have to pass math and English before you get into a field. I was in the technical fields. There's been from machining up to medicine, always a tradition of contextualized, just-in-time learning, where you learn the terminology, you learn the math you need to learn basic concepts while you're doing them and apply.
Old-fashioned apprenticeships too, right?
The old-fashioned apprenticeship is proof. In fact, much of the research on contextualized learning that iBest is based on comes out of research on apprenticeship. And yet we have this very ingrained social idea that people have to, and what it does in effect is sort people out, and does it based on tests and standards that aren't relevant to the real world. So we're preventing social mobility, and we're preventing social mobility for students and their families. Mm-hmm. Because again, we showed that iBest is enabling people who are essentially in the lowest wage jobs to get into technician jobs that pay a living wage and that meet the needs of employers in Washington State, that they're hungry for these kind of, and these people are motivated because they are the American dream. They are moving up thanks to the kind of work. But you have to get over a lot of snobism.
Yeah. So you're giving a vehicle to tap into that motivation and help people have outcomes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I've heard thousands of times, and I literally mean thousands of times, students say, this is the first time math makes sense to me. I'm an A student in math. This is the first time I had something to write about besides my summer vacation, and my family didn't go on a summer vacation.
Let's get a concrete example. If you've never heard about this, What's different? Why is the math different? What makes it relevant or interesting or useful?
Well, I think if you went to the school I went to, math was a series of do problems after problems after problems related to nothing.
Abstract.
But all of a sudden, that
no
math
application.
is contextualized. The math you're learning in your welding class, you then move out to the floor and you're using it. Or in your machining class, you're actually creating objects.
So by having the two teachers in the room together, they're coordinating how they present the information and how they apply it?
Absolutely. And what it's done for instruction has been amazing as well. And this is really something we...
For both the adult literacy teachers who are experts in how teaching basic skills and the career technical faculty who are obviously technical experts, but most of them, the vast majority, have never been trained in teaching, and especially teaching adults, although frankly I don't think there's much difference in teaching children either.
Exactly, and basic skills instructors say, this is the first time I've had a reason to teach these subjects I've been teaching all my life.
That's right. More enjoyable for the teacher.
Yeah, it's, well, because they see what it does for the student. It changes their world, their motivation, and they feel like they're going someplace.
And they are. We have the data to show that they're moving up into the middle class and they're meeting the demands of employers. I'll give you another example. I was recently in a college in Texas talking to an EMT, director of an
EMT center today at Valencia.
Okay. You know, that's a one-year certificate, good jobs in the Austin area for EMT technicians who have the one-year certificate, and you know there is a lot of technical reading and technical math, especially graphs and measurement, and you got to get those measurements and the graphs when you're reporting back to the hospital when someone's like, you know, in serious distress. You got to get that right. That is serious math. There's also probability, but they don't make you take an algebra, a probability, an arithmetic course before. In fact, they said we integrate the teaching. They said these are adults. This is their chance to get a family supporting job. They can get it in 1 year. So we integrate, following the IBEST, the basic skills instruction into. They said, are we going to send them to spend 2 years over in remedial education, which is not teaching relevance and which the research suggests doesn't work? So this is a big issue, and this is how community colleges, and this particular innovation is the key to the teaching part of Pathways.
So,
Correct.
okay, so that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
Bring
so-
this back to the Pathways
so
idea.
Pathways.
How does this all come together with Pathways?
So this comes together, Pathways. Right now, students come and they really don't know what the options are, and especially if they're from lower-income families, they don't know what logistics is. They don't know what maintenance technology is, even though in Washington State it's one of the most dear jobs, can make you, $100,000 or more with benefit. They don't know. They don't even know that nursing is a whole world of jobs with different levels of degrees, and they don't know you have to have a bachelor's degree pretty much to work in it. So they don't know the options, and the paths to those options, even though they're in the college, they're buried for students. So Guided Pathways is essentially doing 4 things. Number 1, clarifying the path and the options to careers for students, and to the degrees at varying levels that will achieve those degrees, that will achieve those ends. And it can be set up in a ladder or a stacked credentials so that students can get a certificate, they can move up in the labor market while still studying toward the associate degree, and move up to an even better job, and get a bachelor's degree. Employers love that because these are students who are staying locally. Clarify the path, number 1. Number 2 is really the hardest part, which is helping students who don't know the options explore programs of study. For adult students, the thing about IBEST is you have to, IBEST, the state only sanctioned IBEST programs in a clear program of study that led to not just a certificate but a degree, and that met a documented labor market demand. So in other words, they start with the end in mind, which is the job, backward design the program. The third area is tracking students' progress through these things, which colleges don't do. So they're reorganizing advising, they're using these technologies, e-advising systems. And then the fourth thing is, within the context of these pathways, they're integrating the teaching of basic skills into the technical content, whether that be U.S. history, anatomy and physiology, EMT technology, Econ 101. And when you look at the research on good teaching and learning at any level, that's what good teachers do. They scaffold the teaching of basic skills, and more advanced learning is just more and more practicing of essentially the fundamentals and a broader set of fundamentals, but applying them.
So how prevalent are these models in the 1,200 community colleges across the nation? I mean,
Well, I can say first, in Washington, we have programs in all 34 community and technical colleges. We have about 250 pathways approved for IBEST, and as Davis was saying, they have to be in a high demand field. They have to be very defined pathways with maps that show each exit point after a certificate, what jobs are available, what the student would make. So it's prevalent. In the last year, we saw IBEST in Washington increase by exactly 21%. So it continues to scale up more and more in our state because of the success. Now, we've also worked with 33 different states across the nation in various aspects of IBEST, from replicating the model identically to a state putting their own take on it. So every state we've worked with that have implemented have seen positive results.
so it's a movement that's spreading, hopefully, or a model that's...
I think if they try it, they can't help but scale it up, because I've been in education in Washington for 41 years. I don't get behind a lot of things, but this is the only thing I've seen that transforms lives in the way I've never seen in all those years.
So
and I'm guessing Pathways is similar.
More broadly, Pathways, it was actually part of the initial conception of those of us who were working in this. At the time, we were only able to work with adult literacy people and career technical because there was a clear labor market need. The Guided Pathways idea is transforming higher education, and what and we're seeing it 2- and 4-year institutions. We counted 340 institutions, including the Washington Community and Technical Colleges, all 32 of them, that are involved in formal statewide or national efforts to implement guided pathways. So so those were only those involved in formal. We get calls all the time about states and colleges wanting to implement that.
And I think key is it saves immense amount of time. And because it saves time, it saves money.
For the people who can least afford
Right.
And it's a much better use of the taxpayers' money, because it's not just saving the students time, it's ensuring that they get on a path that leads to degrees that lead to advancement in the labor market and further education to get to better jobs, which are in more demand in the fields of that are key to the regions of Washington State, of Florida, so they meet a local demand. What we're seeing nationally, and what's most promising, and I have to say here at Valencia, is we're seeing regional partnerships of universities, community colleges, and schools, and that are creating these pathways, starting with the jobs and demand, and building them down into the schools. In the past, we've tried to do vocational education, career tech. We were just talking about this. So Jon is talking about, can I even mention this?
Absolutely.
Moving the IBEST approach down into the high schools. And what I'm saying, what the Pathways movement is, because currently now many students in high school students attend college, community college in Washington State, dual enrollment. As we've done some of the most extensive research on dual enrollment, I would and we have argued that students should not be in a dual enrollment program unless they are enrolled in a program of study, and unless their parents, guidance counselors, and faculty and principals know that, and they're told that they're in a program of study that leads to certificates, associate degrees, and bachelor's degrees, and leads to these jobs at these progressive levels, which are in demand in the Walla Walla region, or in, you know, Tacoma, or in the peninsula, or wherever in Washington.
And that's why we're expanding iBest to iBest in the high school, because what it does is it doesn't target the students that are at that moment performing the best. It targets students that are at risk and re-engages students that have dropped out, but it re-engages them in a field of study they're interested in. So again,
and packs with a lot of information and knowledge.
Correct.
In context, they're getting contact with college-level occupational faculty who themselves have contacts in industry, and they'll say, you know, I have a buddy, he has a firm, he's got an internship, you should go check that out. The kinds of people that community colleges serve by an overall are not the kinds like our children in our families who have external networks that we're able to hit up my friend at the bank and get an internship for my daughter, or you know, these are
capital,
it's social capital. But the scary thing is that because it's not intentional, it's certainly, but we've essentially, our system is set up as a sorting system, and we sort people based on these academic ideas, in particular standardized tests, which which test extremely narrow, abstract skills that are not relevant to the student, and this is very important, they are not relevant to the employer and to the work. And we use it to sort students out. And so we're and when we do that, especially if students are poor or they're students of color, that reinforces what the schools told them, which is, you're not smart. And yet, we see them in an EMT program. We see them in a nursing program. These same that we've branded by our tests as stupid, the employers love these students. The faculty love them because these people are climbing the economic ladder. You want to see motivation, because for once they can see, I can do this. I'm not stupid just because I didn't pass these stupid standardized tests. You know, so I mean, I'm sorry for getting, but it's so moving.
Your enthusiasm is really apparent.
Because we're wasting human potential.
Yeah,
even if all you cared about was employment, we're wasting good employees for employers, and we're wasting a heck of a lot of the money of the taxpayers of.
And at a time when there's so much focus on economic mobility and income
absolutely.
inequality.
This is the thing.
Ticket, yes.
Almost every single iBest student, and I've worked with so many, get their first certificate, and then they say, I want to continue. I didn't know I was smart.
When these certificate graduations, I graduated from Princeton and Carnegie Mellon with a PhD. These certificate graduations where they have families there are the most moving things.
Sure they are, yes.
I cry at weddings, but they are the most moving, because you know that they see, I can do this, they're hungry, they're hooked in. The employers are like, heck yeah, we'll pay you to go back to school because we need these people. You're dedicated, your motivation is scary. It's like an immigrant's motivation.
But we've also moved the pathway model as well as iBest into our adult correctional facilities.
And which is a huge demographic
and
we're having the same results.
So
in fact, a little bit better.
Yeah. So the people that society has rejected, and we've rejected based on, you know, these sorting, you know, abstract things that aren't relevant to what we need people to know, and are reinforcing them, is, you know, taking those away. It's just shocking what you can do.
Well, you know, on that note, I'm going to just say thank you, because your enthusiasm is incredible. Obviously, you're a wealth of information, and I am very excited to have learned.
Sorry we were so subdued.
I know.
Well, thank
Nobody
you.
can
And,
accuse
you
you
know,
of not being excited about this topic.
I always have to thank Davis, because he's been really a mastermind, but in helping Washington really figure out how to get people to that tipping point he talked about, so that they can really secure a living wage job, and it's changing lives.
Yeah, and that's an exciting way to
It's
think
easy to
about it.
talk about. The hard thing is doing it with not enough money.
Okay, so that's a good cue for donors then.
Yeah.
There's a lot that they can do if they would learn more about IVEST and guided
Absolutely.
pathways and how it's changing lives for a lot of
Absolutely.
our lower educated and lower income individuals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific learning from you.